And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our platform today, where we are elevating the cause of constitutional conservatism, advancing the cause of freedom and liberty, and slowly but surely draining the Louisiana swamp. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom. Welcome, everybody. We love getting invited into your cars, your homes, and your headphones. Thank you so much for taking some time with us wherever you are. You are what makes this show possible. We could not do it without your encouragement, your prayers, and your financial support. If you are looking for a way to support us, advertise with us, or send us feedback, please visit our website at freedomstate.us. As a reminder, we are encouraging all State of Freedom listeners and your families to please make a plan to vote in person on Election Day. That's what we're hearing is the best way to go, the best way to ensure your vote counts. So that's what we're encouraging everyone to do. And today, as you might imagine, we are in the last few episodes of the Endorsement series. We hope that you're still enjoying it. We hope that you're sharing episodes with friends and family who live in the districts that we're covering, even though they may not be candidates that you can actually vote for, because you know so well by now that every single member that gets elected, every single candidate will impact the future of our state. And as a reminder, you can send friends and family members short, really great clips of these candidates from our YouTube and Rumble channels. And the links to those are in the show notes and over on freedomstate.us. So today we will be speaking with a candidate who has been a stalwart conservative, both socially and fiscally, a woman who has stood and fought for individual liberties in our state. We are so pleased to have joining us today Kathy Edmonston, who's running for state rep in District 88. But before we speak to Kathy, let me read the scripture of the day. It is Psalm chapter 42, verses 9 through 11. And it says, I will say to God, you are my mountain of strength. How could you forget me? Why must I suffer this vile oppression of my enemies, these heartless tormentors who are out to kill me? Their wounding words pierce my heart over and over while they say, where is this God of yours? So I say to my soul, don't be discouraged. Don't be disturbed, for I know my God will break through for me. Then I'll have plenty of reasons to praise him all over again. Yes, he is my saving grace. And I'm bringing that to you this morning because we all have times, and some of us are living in them right now, where people are viciously attacking us with lies, and it seems like for no real reason. And this whole psalm, David is pouring out his heart before the Lord, reminding the Lord and himself that his strength and his encouragement, his empowerment, and his joy all come from the Lord and worshiping in his presence. In this passage, it's like David can see the daylight breaking through his dark night of the soul because he reminded himself of what the Lord has done for him, and he encourages himself in God's love and faithfulness. So if you are looking for a psalm that teaches you how to encourage yourself in the Lord and reframe your mindset, it's right here. It's in Psalm 42.
That's such a beautiful psalm of David. It's obvious that he's going through some distress. Maybe he has some uncertainty, but he's keeping his eyes on the Lord. And it's like he can slowly but surely see the sun coming up over the horizon. That's such a beautiful psalm. Danielle, we live in a day and age, particularly within the context of politics, where it seems like certain people will say and do anything to achieve and hold on to power.
Yeah.
And with little or no regard for what's the truth, for what's honorable. It's just all about power and the acquisition of power. And it can be very distasteful at times to deal in that environment.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what God is calling us to do. And the only way that we can do it both successfully and also while maintaining our dignity and our faith is by keeping our eyes firmly on the Lord. And that's such a great psalm. And speaking of someone who has her eyes on the Lord and set such a great example for all of us is Kathy Edmonston, representative from District 88 out in Ascension Parish, who's with us this morning. We're so happy to have you, Kathy. How are you today?
Hey, Chris and Danielle. I'm good. I'm good. And gosh, thank you so much for that presentation of Psalm 42. Wow. If we need anything today, it's to know how to encourage ourselves in the Lord. And that was just beautiful. Your presentation, your reading. I just thank you so much for that. That's what's so good about your podcast. You always start honoring the Lord. And I just think that's speaks of your success. I just enjoy your program so much and thank you both for what you've done.
Well, thank you, Kathy. That means so much to us. And it's, it's so important for us to start out with our entire reason for being here, our entire reason for doing what we're doing. And we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the Lord. And honestly, this is how we encourage ourselves. We have to kind of keep that first so we can kind of be focused and have a good mindset when we start talking about some of these issues that hit us so personally.
Amen.
Yes. And we have to remember, that love is not a feeling. It's a commitment. And when you do, we have to do certain things and move forward in our responsibility, no matter how we happen to feel on a given day. I'm sure there were many days when Jesus did things when perhaps he maybe didn't feel like doing them, but he did them because he knew that he had a calling and a duty and he was focused on it. Kathy, I'd like to start this morning. I mean, and maybe this is almost a superfluous question because anybody who knows anything about legislative politics in Louisiana knows your name and all the good things that you've done. But for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, why don't you share a little bit about your background and what led you up to this, first of all, running for the state rep position and now running for reelection?
Well, for over 20 years, I worked for Ascension Parish Schools here in Ascension, which is just, by the way, I am from Ascension Parish. District 88 is my district. That covers most of Gonzales, a lot of Santa Ma, a lot of Galvez, which y'all might not know, but people that live in Ascension would be familiar with those areas. And so I worked for Ascension Parish Schools in a sort of a unusual capacity. My title was Parent Resource Facilitator, and what that meant was pretty much a mediator between families of children that were having difficulty in school and the schools themselves. So whether it was a behavioral issue, a learning issue, a combination of both, I started out on a grant. I worked for 6 months, and within about 2 years, I became a permanent employee of the school system, which a lot of people thought was very unusual. I mean, a couple of principals questioned early on the superintendent who hired me and said, "Why are we hiring somebody that advocates against us?" And the superintendent made the comment, "If you're doing what you need to do for kids, she should be a friend to you. She should be a help." And so that was
Yes,
sort of
indeed.
those people that ask those questions. But anyway, after a few years, it was a great thing. Staff and teachers and principals and administrations did realize that I was there. The bottom line was to help the child. And it wasn't always that parents were right, wasn't always that the administration was right. But we would sit down and we would come together to create a plan that was a path going forward for the success of children. And so that led me as we began to get a Common Core sort of integrated into our schools, into the curriculum. I got extremely depressed because I saw that our teachers were so discouraged. Our parents were obviously discouraged, and our kids were they were just struggling so much. And so I began to, with the help of a good friend and who used to be my legislative assistant, Catherine Gupple, we began to investigate and research and find out exactly what Common Core was about. And it was so detrimental to our state and to our children. Catherine went around the state trying to educate parents and teachers on what Common Core really was. And unfortunately, as I felt led to run for the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education back in 2016 or 15, I can't remember now, because of Common Core. I got in just a little bit too late. They had already implemented. My first vote was whether or not to change the name of the Common Core state standards to the Louisiana state standards. I was the only one that voted against that because, frankly, nothing was changed in the standards, but maybe a few words, a few grammar errors, and that kind of thing. And so, anyway, the rest is history. We did get Common Core in our schools.
Despite your best efforts.
Right, right. That's right. And a lot of other people's best efforts. We had an effort in the legislature back at that time, and I wasn't there. Several good legislators that were trying to fight against Common Core. Brett Guyman was one, John Schroeder was one, and I know I'm missing some others, but there were some other people who really tried hard to keep that from infiltrating our system, but we weren't able to do that. So, thus, we have what we have today. And it is, so many things in education are just questionable. And we just, let me just stop and say, with that background, the 21 years, the 4 years on the Board of Education, I still was not on the Education Committee for the past 4 years of the time that I've been in the legislature. And I believe that I can say with confidence that I will be going forward once I'm reelected and we have another speaker. I will be on the Education Committee. And that's where my expertise is. That's where I can be effective for the people of this state and their children.
It seems not to interrupt you, but it seems like your background that you just described, being a liaison between troubled students and an administration and their parents. I can't think of anything that is more emotionally trying, more psychologically trying, but at the same time, any more rewarding than that. But it gives you a better background, better preparation to work on education issues in the legislature than that. So you're right. I can't imagine anyone who's more qualified to serve. I mean, I think you should probably be chairman of that committee in the new term, quite frankly. I mean, I think we push for you to be chairman.
Well, and I would
But
argue that it also sets you up very well to deal with difficult people and difficult personalities.
indeed, indeed. Let me ask you this, Kathy. I have to talk about some of the legislation that you've brought. Some recently in the state legislature this last term. You have been such a fighter for keeping students from having to have, mandatory experimental vaccines or other medical procedures without regard for their parents' rights to make those decisions. You've been such a fighter on making sure that people have notice that they have a right to exempt from experimental vaccines and medical procedures. And you just have really, really fought hard against this sort of medical tyranny that we've seen in our state over the last couple of years. Was it the lockdowns and the heavy-handed hand of government with all the medical protocols and all? Is that what motivated you to fight in the legislature against that?
Absolutely, Chris. Let's face it, if we don't have our freedom, we don't have anything. And I saw with the lockdowns and what we were doing to the people and the children of our state with the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates. I just saw us becoming, or the potential of becoming, just another third world country that was under tyranny. And it just motivated me to do everything that I could do to help, in particular, parents with their kids that with these vaccines. That, I mean, the science was just not there. I saw that early on, and now after all these months, we see that the science was not there. We see that we were being duped. We were being lied to. And it
Good
was,
word.
I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. And so, one piece of legislation that I know is important to you, Chris, because you've always been so faithful to talk about it, is my House Bill 399, which is the third time that I brought it this time, and that is simply a piece of legislation that quotes the law that is already in place that says to a parent, if you want to opt your child out of any vaccine, you are able to do that. with a short sentence or a little paragraph to the schools saying you choose to opt out. That is already in law. It's under RS 17170. It has been in law for, I should know the number of years at this point, but I don't. But it's been for far more than 10 years already been there. But our school systems and our parents do not know that they have the opportunity to do that. So my legislation simply said schools, when you send out information about vaccine requirements, that you also include the part of the law, the RS 17170, that simply says if you choose not to have your child vaccinated or yourself if you're a college student, then you're able to opt out by a short little, blurb to the school. And it's been vetoed. I don't even know how many times, but we still didn't get it out this time. I believe that that was the one. Chris, correct me. I had two pieces of legislation. Yeah, that was the one that we had a veto override session, as I know that y'all have talked about with other people, other
Yeah.
legislators, podcasts. So we had that, and that bill got out. He was vetoed by the governor. It got out of the House in the veto override session and almost made it out of the Senate, but we had a couple of Republicans that voted against getting it out, so it did not make it out so that we could
And
have.
Kathy, we know, yes, we do, and we know their names very well. The Senate side that prevented that from being overridden. But it's like you're getting closer every year because in 2022, our Speaker of the House, if you recall, never called it for a vote on the House side. And I was so disappointed in that he would have manipulated the machinery of the legislature that way and not have called that for a vote in 2021, 2022, and then you come back in 2023, and you almost got the veto overridden. It was so close, and it seems like such a common sense piece of legislation, and so important that people know that. And of course, also your very important legislation, Kathy, that you fought hard to get passed in the regular session, which was really would have been a statutory clarification that the government has no right ever again to mandate the experimental COVID shot on any school child in the state of Louisiana ever again. And that made it through the original session, but didn't get out of the House at the veto override session because of RINO Republicans whose names we also know very well. But what a strong, good piece of legislation. And hopefully you will bring that back again.
I plan to bring both of those pieces of legislation back, and guess what? We are going to have a Republican governor, and we are not going to have to worry about vetoes for those two bills for sure when we go back into session. So I'm excited about the fact that this regime will be over. I think we'll have, I don't know about a supermajority, but we will certainly have a majority of Republicans in the House and in the Senate. And we hope that we have more and more conservative Republicans that we maybe have had. And I just believe that it's going to be an altogether different situation for our state.
I was just going to say that's exactly what we're fighting for. That's exactly what we are praying for and putting our effort and our many hours of work behind, because this something has got to give. And I think, we've seen, Kathy, as we've talked to so many different legislators and candidates who are true conservatives, who are running for the right reasons, we've seen that the good old boy network seems to just prop up, dig up someone to run against them and to make life difficult and to really, frankly, undermine the future of the state. And so we are fighting our level best. And I know that you're probably also in a bit of a fight. Before we turn to that, I'd love to hear from you on what else you're looking at that you'd want to tackle legislatively. Obviously, this kind of anti-mandate, pro-freedom, pro-personal liberty kind of issue, but you've also probably got some things you want to bring on education or other things.
Well, when you talk to people, when I talk to people, and I'm sure the same is for you, there are several things that are really concerning to people. One is our insurance situation in our state. Auto insurance, homeowners insurance, medical. There are issues with all of it. I really am wanting to get on board with other legislators or legislation myself to do something about our insurance rates and our the climate in this state. Probably we are going to be going into a special session. I don't know if either of you have heard that shortly after the swearing in January. I'm thinking that that's going to happen. And I believe that the insurance issue will be one of the main things that we tackle. My constituency, I mean, it's outlandish to hear the amount of money that people pay to insure their vehicles, to insure their homes. I mean, it is crazy. And
It's
something
insane.
has got to be done. I don't have the answer, but I am definitely wanting to get in and dig and start having debate and find out what we can do for the people of our state. The second thing that I hear most of all is about crime. Now, not necessarily in my parish. We have a wonderful sheriff. We have a wonderful law enforcement. And I'm not saying we don't have any, but it's not anything like the three cities that y'all are aware of that we have in our state. Shreveport, New Orleans, and Baton
Right.
Rouge are at the top of the crime list. That's unbelievable. So we have got to do something. I'm on the Criminal Justice Committee. I believe that we are going to be pushing and fighting for. I believe in social justice reform, our criminal justice reform, just like anyone does. I am more than willing to give an opportunity for people that have been wrongfully judged, but we also need to crack down and stay cracked down on the people that we know are criminals. I mean, I don't know any other way to
The
say it.
real threat.
Instead of letting
Yeah.
them out, we have got
Yeah.
to keep them away so that our people are safe, our children are safe. I'm very emotional about
Yeah.
that issue. It unnerves me to know
Yeah.
that we are allowing.
If there's one thing, Kathy, we allowing that to happen. If there's one thing, Kathy, that runs the theme that runs through a number of our guests that we've had on candidates running for office, it's insurance, education, and crime. Wouldn't you say, Danielle, those themes are almost a constant
Yeah,
among our guests as far as issues that are just demanding attention?
they are. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the other one that kind of cuts across everything is accountability.
Yes, absolutely. Well, in this society, it seems as though every day we're getting more and more unaccountable for the things that we do. I just think of society as a whole in our country, and it's like I think that criminals break into homes and carjackings and stuff like that. Why? Because I think they know they're really not going to be held accountable for doing those things.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true. I heard just recently there was a situation maybe somewhere in Ohio where just this gang of young men were just rolling around different places in the city, vandalizing and stealing from various shopping centers, and just continued on and for 4 or 5 different locations until they were finally apprehended. Some of them were not apprehended at all. A couple of them were, and who knows whether the other ones are ever going to be held accountable for it. It's frightening. It's disturbing,
It is.
and it's something that simply can't be allowed to happen in a if we're going to have a stable society. It really so I'm so happy that you speak so strongly to the issue of crime, which really does go to law and order. I want to ask you this, Kathy. Let me ask you another question about something real quick, because to me, when Danielle alluded to this a minute ago, and it seems like in a number of these races where there are good constitutional conservatives who are running, who are standing up and plan to do important things regarding these issues that we're facing: insurance, education, crime, our tax structure. They have these opponents get propped up against them who are supposedly Republicans, but they're not really Republicans. For instance, in your case, your opponents, we discovered, became Republicans very shortly before qualifying to run against you. They've been Democrats their whole lives, and they became Republicans to run against you. Well, that makes us very suspicious whether or not they really are philosophical conservatives who are determined to go in and speak for the citizens and make some of these changes that need to be made. And so, do you have any thoughts on that? I know you're a very positive person. You always want to speak from the higher part of your nature, and you've always been that way. But what are your thoughts on the fact that your two opponents in this race had a very recent epiphany, very recent, to become Republican?
My number one thought is they think our constituency are stupid. That's what I think. And that's what really unnerves me. It doesn't matter what they're doing to me, but if they think that they're going to fool the people of District 88 into thinking that they are conservative Republicans when they change that quickly before qualifying, that really galls me. It really does. Because my people and all of our people in the state of Louisiana are smart. They know what's
Yep.
going on. I do not like sometimes the decorum at the legislature where it's almost like we diss the people that spend their time and money and energy to come and testify on a bill, and they're treated as if they are second class citizens. Sometimes I watch what goes on and I see that committee members, chairmen treat the public when they have come to testify. They've spent their time, their money, their energy, and they're treated so poorly. It oh I can't I just can't tell y'all how angry that makes me because
Yeah, you have been that. You've always treated us so well.
they have voted us in. They are the ones that we're accountable to. This is their government, not our government. I mean, I could go on a rant for
Yeah,
the whole day,
but
but
more specifically, Kathy, what would you say? I just felt like I had to mention the fact that these guys are just very recently becoming Republicans. We find that very suspicious, and you obviously have been in the fight for a long, long time, and will continue to do so. What would you say separates you philosophically from your opponents?
well, I believe that I have taken, and it's just who I am. I look at what's going on in the entire state as well as what's going on in my district. I find that the opponents are really just looking at district things, infrastructure, flooding, those kinds of things, which I am absolutely 100% in favor of looking at and funding. But as you both know, I did not vote to bust the cap because I feel like that I have been charged with the people of Louisiana's money, and I believe that we should be fiscally responsible and use it wisely. And so my vote to stay within those limits has been criticized and talked about because supposedly there was money on the table that we didn't bring home. I don't believe that. I was not the only one in my delegation that voted the way I did. So I just think that's more rhetoric. I'm just moving forward and knowing that I'm allowing people to know who I am. And that is a person that not only looks at what I can do for my district, but my district is really not that different from the rest of the population in Louisiana. We're all people. We all go to work every day. We all try to raise our children. We all want our children to be successful. Those things are common to everyone. And so I just feel like I would be remiss as a legislator if I was not looking at what goes on in the entire state as well as what goes on in my district. It's just not that different.
Yeah. And Kathy, that's one of the things that we really love about you. I have to say, one topic that has continued to be kind of a thread through this endorsement series is that the people we bring on have that bigger picture mindset because we can't afford legislators whose top priority is to bring home the bacon to their district. That's how we get into the problems that we have. In fact, that is the mantra and that is the entire reason for being of the good old boys club is to bring back money for their for their friends contracts, for their family contracts, and that is running the state into the ground. And people have to
Absolutely.
be able to see the bigger picture. We can't trade the state for the district. we have to look at both in perspective, right?
Yes, and I think that philosophically, that's the difference between myself and the two opponents in my race, as well, like you say, many other people that are running against the people that I've served with that I believe are of the same mindset, and they are looking out for the people of this state. Period.
Absolutely,
Period.
Kathy. It's interesting that you bring that up. That sort of some of these folks have such a myopic, a short-sighted view of what their role is. There's a race in the state right now. I believe it's Representative Shammerhorn's race. He has a challenger, and his challenger's sole motto and sole campaign slogan is, "I'll get you our share." That's it. That's basically, I'll get you our share. So basically, he views his sole responsibility to go to the legislature and get as much tax money as he can back into his district for God knows what, and to be concerned about little else. And that is not going to get the job done for the citizens of Louisiana.
No. And Kathy, I know that you have good relationships in the legislature. Have you talked to other legislators about the prospects of this next session? I'm just thinking about, okay, like you set it up, if, God willing, we'll have a conservative governor, a conservative majority. Is there appetite in the legislature, in the House, to really take a hard look at the budget and talk about giving the tax dollars back to the parishes and stop putting so much of it centrally controlled in Baton Rouge?
Absolutely. I think our people in the legislature are raring to go. They have been held back for so long with the current administration, and they are so looking forward to being able to do things with the state income tax and with insurance and the things that we have not been able to accomplish. Yes, absolutely. As you know, I'm a member of the Freedom Caucus, and for sure, our Freedom Caucus is spearheading, conservative legislation, and but it's not just us. I'd say the majority are definitely willing and wanting to look at legislation that impacts the people of the state in terms of monetary insurance, all the things that we've talked about. They recognize, and I recognize, our people are doing everything they can to make a living, to try to educate their children, to do what they know they need to do, and they are struggling, y'all. They are struggling. People are struggling. We have got to do something about it.
Yeah, Steven Schreiber was on our show, Kathy. He's running down in Danielle's neck of the woods for state senate down there,
Okay.
and he really put it so very well when we had him on recently. He said it is just so unbelievably backwards. So you have people who live in a local community who are paying a ton of money, sending so much money to Baton Rouge that's their money instead of investing it in their own local governments. And then they have to go beg to get some of that money back.
I know.
And
What a
it is
travesty.
just so odd. And
Travesty.
of course, Danielle reminded us the other day that that is a very backwards way to do things, but we also have to clean up the local system as well. But I just found the way Steven Schreiber put that is like, that seems like such a backwards way to do things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's a travesty as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, Kathy, tell us how the race is going. And I know that you've gotten some big endorsements. Who all has given you the nod so far?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you want me to name them all, but I have 10 pretty large sized endorsements. And I believe that's because these 10 entities recognize that I have been in Baton Rouge at the Capitol doing everything I can to help the citizens of our state. I don't think they would have endorsed me otherwise. NFIB, Lobby, Health Freedom Louisiana, all the gun people, the truckers, the loggers, the realtors. I mean, they've all given me their endorsement, and it's very humbling. It really is. But I think it shows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It's a testament to your character. It's a testament to your track record. And look, we're here. You're here with us today because we support you, we endorse you, and we want to see you win.
Well, I love you guys. I could be here no matter what because I think your program is just amazing. I am so thankful that y'all have taken the time and the energy to interview the people that you have. And I just pray that these podcasts are getting out to the people because if they are making all the difference, all the difference. And I know that they are. I mean, I've talked to so many people, but I just want everyone in the state to be able to hear your podcast. They are so extremely important. So important.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
saying that, Kathy. And they are getting out, and we're rapidly expanding. And I just have to say this about you, and then I'm going to let you give a final thought, whatever you want to say. But I can't think of any race that sort of represents exactly what we need and must have on the one side in order to change our state and return our government to the people, and that's you. And then on the other side, and your opponents, people who, by every indication, are just going to be perfectly content keeping things exactly the way they are, operating on the altar of self-enrichment, which has driven this state into the ground. And that is why we are so happy to be supporting you and happy to be endorsing you and are going to continue to work hard. And it looks like you're in good stead and in good shape. You keep working hard. Do you have any final thoughts? Like if I were walking, Kathy, into the voting booth in 5 minutes and I was going to go vote, cast a vote for you or your opponents, what would you want me to be thinking about when I cast my vote?
Whether or not you want the state of Louisiana to be different or whether you want it to stay status quo. Either change or status quo. Change would be that we fight and continue to fight for the freedoms of our citizens, and status quo would be that we keep our eyes on the money and whatever we can get to keep in our own little parameter rather. That's what we're interested in. That's what I would say to your listeners. Look for the people that are wanting to change the way things are. This state should be prospering in every arena. We have everything going for us, but we have had corrupt government for so many years that we have not reached even nearly the potential that we could reach. And I would say to your listeners, look for the people that are interested in changing the way things are, changing from the status quo.
You're so
And
right.
as in your case, people who not only say that they are interested, but actually have a track record of performance to back it up. And I think that is a singular advantage to you because you not only talk, you've walked the walk, and we've been there and we've seen it. And God bless you, Kathy. We wish you the very best. The last 2 weeks of the campaign. By the way, how can people get in touch with you and reach out to your campaign?
My website is kathyforlouisiana.com. And look, I'm going to give you my cell number because everybody in the country has it.
Go for it.
My phone number is 225-328-5832. And I welcome any phone calls, any positive or negative comments. I'm interested to know what the people think.
2 weeks out, we know you're going to be working hard between now and election day. We're rooting for you, and Godspeed. And hopefully we're celebrating on October 14th. Have a wonderful day, Kathy, and thank you for your great service to the state of Louisiana.
Thank you both so much. I really have enjoyed talking with you and appreciate again what y'all are doing for our state.
Thank you, Kathy. Have a great one. Chris, Kathy Edmonston knows her true north. You know, she's a woman who knows what she's about. And I just love that about her. She is willing to stand for what's right, what she knows to be right, what she believes to be right. She's willing to stand for her values, and she's willing to do it alone if she has to.
Absolutely. And she's demonstrated that. You know, if there's any Republican, any conservative in the state legislature, Danielle, who you look up and are just shocked that people would be propping up quote unquote Republicans to run against somebody like that. It's just stunning and shocking. I would want to ask these guys, okay, so you're a Republican. Okay, you switched to the Republican Party. You're now a Republican, which Therefore, we can assume that you embrace a conservative philosophy, small government, individual freedom. What exactly has Kathy Edmonston done in the legislature that you find so objectionable that you would run against her and try to unseat her? I would love to know the answer to that question, because as I said earlier, Danielle, the mere fact that they just switched parties before qualifying and they're out there attacking her and wanting to run against her and unseat her tells me that they're nothing more than part of the good old boy network, and nothing will change if people like that continue to serve in our legislature.
Yeah. And of course, we have seen no evidence of true heart changes, right? Like we've mentioned of some others. I think Jeremy Lacombe was the one that comes to mind who didn't have really any statement to make about how their philosophy has changed, and that's something that you expect when someone is making such a big decision for an office that they're running, that impacts the way that they will make decisions. And I think that the light that it casts on them, in my view, is that they can't be trusted by Republicans or Democrats, because they will do anything and say anything just to have power, as you so well said earlier.
Yeah, it's very true. I think we rightly look upon this very skeptically, and all in for Representative Kathy Edmonston. I think she's in good shape. As she said, she's gotten major conservative endorsements. We certainly support her and happy to be doing so. I always want to, before we get off the air, Danielle, remind folks, first of all, thank everyone for donating to LeCAG, for subscribing to LeCAG. We have the resources that we need increasingly to help candidates who are of Kathy Edmonston's stripe continue to win, continue to serve. The ultimate goal, of course, is to return our legislature to the citizens, and we are going to do that with the help of LeCAG members and, of course, the members of the State of Freedom.
Yeah, and people can donate to LeCAG at lecag.org, and give them the P.O. Box, Chris.
P.O. Box 64952, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70896. Every bit of your financial support is so appreciated, and again helps us to elevate the voice of constitutional conservatism in our legislature. We could not do it without you, and we're so deeply appreciative. Danielle, we are moving across the state with the State of Freedom. I'm so happy to be working with you and to be continuing to broaden our platform. Every day we're growing and expanding. And I just want to say thanks to our listeners for their support, their donations, their sharing, and their subscribing to our show.
Yeah, absolutely. We couldn't do it without them. And I'm just amazed at the opportunities we've been given to speak to people who are like-minded, speak to people who want to make a difference, and who have a vision for where the state can go. Because that's exactly what we're here for. We're here to move the state forward. And I think there's no way you could have said it any better. It's about returning the government to the people.
It is, and we are going to do that with hard work, God's grace, consistency, and courage. Each day, Danielle, we will take another step to return our state and preserve the State of Freedom in Louisiana.
Yes, we will. Marching onward.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to the State of Freedom, LLC at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.